on both ends. Parents are still desperately in need of communication, connection, community, answers, help to the almost to the same degree as when I first started out and where there was nothing. And I'm not disparaging what's out there, but I agree with you, Seth. I still feel there's so much that it doesn't have to be this way. Whereas one of my platforms is something called universal learning. We all know what universal design is. It's the curb cuts, right? It's the closed caption television that was originally put there for a population that might have been either visually impaired or physically impaired. And what we found is universally, we all benefited from it. So when we talk about universal learning, it's exactly that. It's things that have been put in place for those that might have executive functioning challenges or ADHD or other challenges with things that we're finding really benefit all students. So why are we not focusing on universal learning? Why are we not saying this is for all students
Yeah, and we
instead of
say
the opposite?
there's a saying,
That's my frustration.
yeah, best practice. There's a saying used to say best practice for special ed is best practice for everyone. Then it was best
Yes.
practice for gifted ed is best practice for everyone. Then why don't we do best
Why are we
practice for
not?
everyone?
And it's
And
called
that
universal
means
learning. It actually has a name.
yeah, it has actually many names because you can
Anyway,
also think about asynchrony. So we used to use this term asynchrony more. Now people are saying neurodivergence. I think those things are essentially one and the same. That asynchrony is how when you have a kid who's 2E who develops asynchronously and they're way above typical in certain areas and way below typical in certain areas, that's this asynchronous development for 2E kids. Well, when it comes to neurodivergence, it's where are the asynchronies within that person? When it comes to universal approach, like what are the things that each person, the individual needs, and I do have definitely ideas why I think it hasn't changed. I wonder what you think, but I think that the system, while again, thank goodness there's so many people who have our kids' best interest at heart, who are working directly with our kids. But the system as a whole, even
yes,
if you think of a public school system, there is profit motive all throughout that that contributes to things staying stagnant and looking like things are changing or things are changing a little bit, but really systemically doing something that could really move the needle, that could really make so we would have to invest in it. We would have to say, yep, we're going to pay teachers what they're worth. We're going to treat them how they should be treated. We're going to support them how they need to be supported, give them the resources they need, the training, the time, and the
exactly.
class size to do what they need to do,
Right.
rather than cramming as many kids as we can, going through tests as sort of the end all be all to determine success of schools or kids and yada yada. Like, if we invested in this, we would see incredible, massive changes.
I could not agree with you more. And I know this is not going to be a whole conversation about, but I agree with you. It takes time, it takes money, it takes resources, and it takes a change of mind. I have to share something with you that is so simple but so interesting. So I appreciate what you said that I've done some massive things in my business. I have. I've done some monumental things and some small things. And I feel, though, interestingly, that this came out of the pandemic. So for years, there's many things that frustrate me, but one of the things that frustrates me greatly is that there are students out there, and my company, as you know, really focuses on championing students. We champion the professionals and the parents that are raising students, and we work to try to make, whether it's in the schools, one-on-one, at home, whatever we can do. And what I, I'm not saying it's black and white, but pre-pandemic, I always felt there was one way where children or students were tested. It was like give them a test, give them an exam, they graded it, what they got was what they got. And what we started to see after the pandemic, and it's something that I really talk to parents about and what I really talk to teachers about, I'm very blessed that I get asked to come into schools to teach students, to teach parents, and to teach teachers. And I'm always humbled when I get to teach teachers because I'm not a teacher. And I think what they do with what they have is hero work. But one of the things we started seeing was that tests, as we know, tests are not the way for most kids to really show how they understand material. And I was seeing my students really doing these amazing study tools, whether it was a mock website or a poem or a graphic novel. And what we're seeing more and more, silly, like such a minor thing, but such massive rewards, is being able to submit those as part of their test scores. Why are we not saying, you know what, you're right, a test or a quiz is not the definitive answer here. Let me see how well you put together a study tool, because that study tool is going to really show me whether or not you understand. Because as I see it, tests are not just my definition of a test is not that your kid can do 30 questions in 30 minutes. It's how do you really understand the breadth and depth of the knowledge of the material. And we're seeing more and more schools or teachers accept that now as part of their grading process. It seems like such a small thing, but it is, I see it in my work, it's had massive rewards trickle down. It gives that student confidence. They get to express information in a way that they understand and that they can manipulate. I don't want to waste our time together going through all the benefits, but it's so interesting to me, and it's like something that I have like championed because I've seen like how this small change can have massive results.
Yeah, no, and there's a term called authentic assessment. You know,
Mhm.
testing
I love
assessment is
that you put the like the professional name on it, and I'm just gushing from a
no.
personal. I love
There's
that.
a bunch. I mean, there's so many things professionally that,
I know.
in the education world, there's always the next latest and greatest. And if you're a teacher in a school building, you're going to walk into the teacher. So for all you parents out there who've never been in a teacher's lounge or don't spend a lot of time in the back of a school, like you walk in the teacher's lounge or the main office one day and you see like this beautiful spread of books. Like these are basically advertisements. There's this
Right.
textbook, all these textbooks from this company with CDs and everything, and this beautiful spread. Like these are incredible. They must cost a few $100 just to produce this thing, right? And then a salesperson comes in and they show this, and schools look at them, and there's always like the next program, and a lot of these programs are amazing or have amazing concepts, but they are still sold by salespeople to districts,
Mm,
or like that is the objective. How do we sell this thing? And 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 then how do we use, and then some of these programs do have amazing ways to assess learning, that are very authentic and that are very hands-on and that give kids a lot of choice. So anyhow, there's a lot of different ways to say, besides like
yes.
there's synonyms for everything. There's the next latest and greatest. Like you're going to see, new words being used now, like neurodiversity and neurodivergence is big, and
Yes.
these, maybe ADHD will be renamed, and then that'll start, that word or term will start becoming common. But there's also something called content process product environment. And for what you're talking about in terms of, we're talking about assessment and showing your learning. What's the point of assessment? To take a multiple choice quiz or an essay test or this or that, or to show your learning? It's to show your learning. So in content process product, the product, content is what you're learning, process is how you're learning it, and product is showing your learning. So a test could be a product, but
Absolutely.
how valuable are those tests? I used to do 3 question tests in my class. I'd, we would tear up a piece of paper into eighths and give it out to the kids. I'd have them put their name on it, and I'd ask 3 questions about whatever the thing was, and then I'd throw them in the trash. Like, and kids who love grades, they're like, "Mr. P, I want my thing." I'm like, "Well,
Not
you
my
can have
thing.
it, put your own grade on it. I don't really care." Because I'm going through those. I'm like, okay, they've got it, they've got it, they've got it, they've got it. This one doesn't. I need to work with them. That is a useful assessment because that tells me how I need to serve the kid. But to just give them back something that says 68% and this and that, like, how useful is it? So how can we do product where kids can have choices, and there are a million ways, but they can have and that's why I love like project-based learning, and that's why I love I don't talk about this a lot, but as a teacher I love long units where kids can really, probably the favorite thing I ever did as a teacher, and homeschool parents are really like this, but teachers are like this too. Probably the favorite thing I ever did, ever as a teacher, is to do museums. And it doesn't matter if it's math, science,
Oh,
social studies. Like there's so many subjects you
there's
can do
so
this with.
many.
but each kid has a museum exhibit, and we work for whatever it is 6 weeks on the unit, and they create. So I'm teaching all the kids the core content of a thing. Let's say we're learning about ancient civilizations. We're all learning about certain
That's like my
themes.
favorite thing. I talk about Mesopotamia all the time with kids. That's so
Ancient
funny that you said
civilizations are
ancient.
cool.
I think if I had to do it over again, I would have been a history, like an ancient history teacher. I cannot believe you said
Uh,
ancient civilizations. It's like
How
my
do you
thing.
get kids engaged in it? You have to make it engaging. But to do a museum where we're learning certain core content together, certain themes, important things that everyone quote should know within a topic of study, but then for them to be able to have choice to go into their exhibit into whatever they want, however they want,
It's
and to
brilliant.
guide them through executive function in terms of that this is project management, and doing a 6 week thing is project management so that you can be ready to do your exhibit in a school museum where other classes of other ages, and then for kids to teach that to other kids who are coming to their exhibit is so cool because they get so much more depth from the. Sorry, I'm ranting on this, but it's cool. They
I
get so much more
I
depth
feel
and
like I'm
teaching.
interviewing you. I love this.
Oh yeah, so yeah, sorry. I'm
No,
just
no, I want to. I think
I'm supposed to
you're
be
just brilliant, and I love
asking
listening
you
to
to do stuff. But and then the also not only them teaching other kids is so good for them learning it better,
you.
but
Right.
also now that they have this foundation and they have a depth in one area that they're interested
Yeah.
in, when they see all the other exhibits of their classmates, that the way that that adds to their foundation of what they've just learned in their mind about the topic is so cool rather than just again tests, multiple choice tests,
Great
read the chapter, answer the questions at the end
question.
of the chapter, and all this sort of thing.
Your students were very lucky to have you. That's all I'm going to say.
Thanks.
Yes, they were.
I
We
I
all know
don't do much
about
well,
the
but I
pace,
pride myself on it.
tactile learning. I talk to kids all the time about how this is so how I teach things, how the brain and the body are BFFs, right? So I'm going to be dating myself. You're probably going to go, I cannot even believe what she's talking about, but there are people out there that will absolutely know what I'm talking about. In my era, there was a necklace, and it was the best friend's necklace, and it was split down the middle, and you wore one half, and your best friend wore the other, and that's how I describe. And those necklaces have come back, Seth. So when I'm working teaching students, that's what I tell them. I'm like, the BFF necklace you're wearing and your friend is, that's the body and the brain. They were born the same, which is anytime whether it's writing or we put our whole selves into learning, it commits it to memory. We learn it better. We learn it more in depthly. We learn it faster. We learn it more holistically even. So everything you describe, any kind of like tactile learning, it's the only way to go, which is why when I go on, I'm just kind of giving you guys a little bit of a preview of my session with Seth. We actually spend a lot of time talking about three-dimensional learning, not just doing simple flashcards or doing a simple study guide, but what else can your student do that they have choice and control over? Full agency, something that I am very much, when you ask me about frustration, that's actually my biggest frustration, is being able to give kids more choice and control in their learning. But that's it. It's how much can your child really put themselves into the learning? They will reap that. They will reap the rewards back.
Yeah.
So everything you just said and more.
Yeah. And if that seems abstract, we do it all the time. If you want a driver's license, your product is showing them how to drive. If I'm going to
Yes.
teach you a song on guitar, you're going to be playing it. And then I can show you, okay, this is how you do this or that or the other. If you're going to be, you know, if you're going to be cooking with someone and teaching them how to make a certain meal that you love and sharing your favorite recipe, the product is making the thing. It's not a test. I mean,
No.
not again. That
No, they
there
have to
there
do.
can be a time and a place, and there can be value in tests. And I don't want to act like there's not.
No,
It's
of course not. But I
getting
just,
it right sized and
but I love it. I know this is completely not what we were going to talk, but I love that you mentioned driving a car. I have to share something with you. So you know that I wrote the Dear ADHD Family Coach column for Attitude Magazine. It was a weekly column. I always say it was like the Dear Abby. People gave me cues. I gave them their A's. Probably the most popular column was about teaching my child who was neurodivergent how to drive. Like, how do you do that? I because a parent's like, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous. And there's no magic elixir here. There's no magic answer. But, and they asked me, how did I teach my son to drive? Like, how did I get comfortable? And and it's interesting you said that, but it's to your point. I'm like, my son drove all the time. Once he got once he got a permit, there was no optionality. There was no like, it's too early in the morning, I'm tired. It's 6 o'clock, I'm hungry. Because to truly learn, you need to learn in at all time frames. If you're hungry, if you're tired, if it's late at night, all of those things. And that's what I did. No, every single time we got into the car, he drove. And that's literally how he mastered the skill. And listen, it was also weather related. I know you're in Hawaii. I'm bi-coastal, but I was living in New York at the time. But this is a true story. It was like a snowstorm outside. It was 5 p.m. He was in his room. I walked in. I'm like, threw him the keys. I'm like, let's go. He's like, what? I'm like, I don't give a you know what if New York State says you can drive. You got to.
That's your authentic assessment.
I'll tell you when you can drive. And there this kid was driving on icy, back roads in New York, in Westchester County, going, I want to keep it clean. And I'm like, keep going. But like, that's what you have to do. And he to this day will say, I have another child who does not have, executive functioning challenges. And she will even say, I wish you had done that with me. He is the most confident driver. He's the most like, and I attribute it to, like you said, just constantly doing. That's how he learned, just by doing. So there it is. I love that you mentioned driving, because I get that question a lot from my older one. How did you? And it's not always school related executive functioning skills. And I think that's important too. We spend so much time as experts, as coaches, talking about school. And I actually really like to talk about all the other things that are going on in a kid's life.
Anything we're doing. And yeah, when you connect those dots, that helps kids figure out, okay, well, I could use the way that I manage things here in this area as well.
Yes.
Well, let's wrap up here. We're here. My name is Seth Perler. This is Leslie Josel. We are here with TEFOS, the Executive Function Online Summit, August 9th through 12th. We'll pop a link in if we are. I'm streaming on something called Riverside. There's the proof is in the pudding here. Like, this is my assessment. How am I doing? And I'm trying to stream to multiple places right now: YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook page, Facebook group. Who knows if it's working?
Holy moly, that's a lot.
Apparently, I don't know if it's working. This is the first time I've ever used it. But hopefully it is. We'll see. And I hope you can join us. Leslie, got any final words for people? Let's end on. Sorry, everybody. I didn't mean to get so grumpy, but I do this also because of hope. I wouldn't do it if I didn't. Let's end on a word of hope.
Okay, here's my word of hope for you. This is my parenting philosophy. I actually want to, and I think it's a really good one, but it doesn't matter neuro or not, but I feel this has really worked and I see it a lot. It is your job as a parent to set the parameters. Remember that, but remember it's your child's job to negotiate them. Allow them to do that.
Thank you, Leslie. And thank you, everybody, for being here.
Bye, everyone.
If you want. See if I can stop this properly.
We'll just keep chatting.
I think you hang out with me for a minute. So
I'm not going anywhere. It says still recording, just so you know.